11, we should really see in the former chapter, in Perek Yud, two key verses that helps us understand the background. In the former chapter, in chapter 10, verse 17 and 18, Vayitzaku b'nei Amon vayechanu b'Gilad. The Jews are about to be attacked. Okay? The people of Bnei Ammon, right? Remember, on the other side is, I'm pointing, Edom, Moab, and Ammon. That's in our Parsha. I want to explain what happened hundreds of years before and what's happening now 300 years after, okay? So Bnei Ammon are arriving somewhere in the Giladi Mountains. We're going to learn that we said in our shiur, you have it on your map here, that the Yabok, if you can find the Yabok that flows into the Jordan, above the Yabok is northern Giladi Mountains, under the Yabok, the southern Giladi Mountains. And now Ammon is coming up to the Giladi Mountains, probably north of the Yabok, and they're about to attack the Jewish people there. And they're camping in Mitzpah. And then the ministers of Gilad say, we don't have a military leader. How will we fight? That's in the last chapter, chapter 10 of Sefer Shoftim. This is very important, even though it's not part of the body of the text that we're going to be reading on Shabbos and Haftarah. But you should know that when you study the Haftarah, there are many places that really the story begins earlier. And it may be urgent, important for us to understand. Okay, for instance, if you start reading, let's say in Parshat Noach, the beginning of Lech Lecha, and you hear Avram Avram travels after receiving the command to go. But if you open up the end of Parshat Noach, you find out that Terach, with Avram, started traveling from their country of where they were living, and they're going in the direction of Eretz Canaan. Okay? Even though the story of Avram really begins in the beginning of Lech Lecha. I want to give you some historical introduction. I learned by one of my rabbis, Rabbi Elchanan Samet, this understanding. Please bear with me. Like we said, three waters that split the eastern side of the Jordan River. The Yarmuk until the Yabok, and the Yabok until the Arnon. That splits somewhere here. We said here is En Gedi, if you remember, and up in the mountains is parallel Hebron. That's what we studied. So here on the other side of the Jordan, these three rivers split. Okay? They split the Jordan River. They come from the east and they split and they go down to the west. That's clear to everyone. And they basically cut up the Jordan, the other side of the Jordan areas into different areas. Like we said, opposite Yam HaMelech is the Arnon, Nachal Yabok, which you remember, who wrestled who in the book of Bereshit? Do you remember? Not Avraham. Yaakov wrestled the angel of Esav. That was by the Yabok crossing. And one of the sources of the water for the Jordan is the Yarmuk. Historically, three nations settled the eastern side of the Jordan River. Do you remember, Eov, with their names? Three nations on the eastern side of the Jordan River. What are the names? Let's go down from the south. Edom, Moab, and now we're Ammon, which is the subject of today. Again, Edom, Moab, Ammon. Okay? It's clear. Edom settled south of the Dead Sea, and they settled what's called here the Arava. This is a dry valley that leads to Eilat. Edom settled south of the Dead Sea on both sides, this side and this side as well. So historically, that's where Edom settled. Remember, Edom comes from which lineage? Esav. Edom comes from Esav. Whereas the other two nations, Ammon and Moab, settled from the area of the Abok until the area of Nachal Zered. Arnon, there's another Nachal here called Nachal Zered mentioned in our Parsha, that it would lead and then spill into the Arnon. The Arnon would spill into Yam Amelach. Okay? So the borders really between Ammon and Moab were not clear historically. We don't see that in the Tanakh. Their borders were not clear. But it is clear that these two nations historically settled between the Abok and going down south to Nachal Zered or Nachal Arnon. When the Jewish people were taken out by God from Mitzrayim, there was infiltration from the west to the east. Who was living? What is this land called historically in the Tanakh? Eretz Canaan. One of the chief or central Canaanite nations is called Emori. Okay? When we were coming out of Mitzrayim, one of the 7 nations of Canaan called the Emorim, they infiltrated to the east side. And they basically captured the areas of here, Ammon and Moab. And you know what? They pushed Ammon up north. They pushed Moab down south, all the way maybe to the Arnon area. And this entire area would be called in the Tanakh the Giladi region. Mountains of Gilad. We'll explain in a moment why they would be called Harei Gilad. Okay? Now, in general, from the Yarmukh, okay, until the Arnon would be called the Giladi Mountains, historically. And as we said, the Abok would be the divider between northern Gilad and southern Gilad. You can see that on your map. I'm going to give Mr. Adler also one of them so you can see the map in front of himself. Now, there's another one. Yes, sir. Now, this Amorite kingdom did not settle just for this area called the Giladi region, but they also spread up to the area above the Yarmukh. Where do you see the Yarmukh on your map? It's just, the Yarmukh spills just a little underneath the Kinneret. Do you see that? What would be the mountain range to the east of the Kinneret called? We learned it in our shore yesterday in our maps.
Golan.
The Golan today, historically, Tanachically, the Bashan. The Amorites, the Amorite kingdoms did not settle just for this area, remember? But they even went further up above this water called the Yarmukh, and that will be called the area of the Bashan. The Bashan. Okay? And this would be the background for what Israel found when we're arriving now in this area in year number 40. Okay, we learn in our Parsha. Okay, you hear this, Israel? After we finish the Parsha Paraduma, we come to the next chapter. 38 years are skipped. And we're now in the 40th year. And our Parsha is really the background that when we tried to ask permission from the king of Edom, and he refused to give us permission to pass through his land, we went there. For which way did we go then?
South.
We went down south.
Yeah.
On the Derech, what's the name of that road? Derech Yam Suf. Derech Yam Suf, the road that takes us towards Yam Suf, which we said is the Red Sea, towards Eilat. And what did we do? We circled, we went around, and we passed the Edomite mountains from which side? The east. We can. We have a map here, maybe? Can I see?
No.
This is not good. Is there a different one here? No. Okay, we went all the way down towards Eilat, I don't know where until exactly, and we made a U-turn and we passed the Edomite Mountains from the eastern side, which is hard desert travel. That's not a vanilla ice cream. That's hard traveling in that area. Okay? Now, it did not only include passing through the Edomite Mountains, but we came up to this area, which is the area of Moab. They were pushed down because who conquered the area, we said?
The Amorites.
The Amorites. Emori infiltrated from the land of Canaan to here, captured Ammon and Moab's lands, pushed Moab down south, pushed Ammon up north. We went past Moab on the eastern side as well. On the eastern side, because we're not allowed to fight Moab. Moshe Rabbeinu warns them, as we learned in Devarim chapter 3. Was that it? Don't do provocatia. Don't be provocative and do war to Moab and not to Ammon and not to Edom. Very good. Edom is our brother. Comes from Esav. Ammon and Moab are the children of Lot. Lot is the nephew of Avram Avinu. Very good. Now, gentlemen, in the seam between Moab and Sichon, okay? Moab is over here, Sichon is over here. We also asked for permission to pass by Sichon in the Parsha, and he didn't allow us. He learned politically from which country? Edom. And he thought that he can act the same way that Edom. He'll maybe threaten us, and what will we have to do? Back off. Laseget. The verb in Hebrew, laseget, to retreat. He thought we're going to have to retreat. And therefore he denied access of the Jewish people going through the land of Sichon. And he came out with his army armed. But he didn't realize or didn't know there's a different din. There's a different din, a different law. Between who and who?
Israel and Edom?
No. Between Edom and Sichon. Sichon is a different halacha. Why? Sichon is the king of the what? The Canaanites. Beautiful. What are we supposed to do if we're attacked by Canaanites? We have to wipe them out. Men, women, and children. What's there? We have to fight them and kill them. They're idolaters.
And who's all?
Same too. He's also an Amorite, part of an Amorite kingdom. Exactly. Yes, sir. Therefore, what Sichon did not know is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded Moshe to smite Sichon. And here it is. In our Parsha, erupts a war that allows Israel, with the success from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to capture Eretz Sichon. What does that mean? It means from the Abok until going down where?
Arnon.
Very good. From the Abok until the Arnon. Vast lands and territories. And at the same time, we destroyed the population of the Amorites that was living there. Or what you called Yisrael, Hechrimu. We devastated them, we wiped them out, and so on and so forth. Thank you, Hashem, for allowing. If the victory is written in the Torah, it's not only then, it's now as well. We're thanking Hashem. However, there's something that evolved from that war. Into which direction? The end of the Parsha. Further north. This war allowed us for developments to go up north. Ya'azer, Gilad, areas under the Golan, and We won a war against which entity? I can't. No. Og, the king of, which today is called Golan, and it brought us all the way up to the Hermon mountain. Do you know where the Hermon mountain is? It's far up north. The Hermon has a nickname, the eyes of the state of Israel. Do you know why it's called the eyes of the state of Israel?
It's very high.
It's 2,000 meters up, okay? And from there we see everything that can be going on in Syria. We have, sophisticated radar, Damascus, right? But you should know that most of the Hermon is in the hands of the Syrians. It's a very hard mountain terrain. And we've gone on family trips very far up north, and we see the Hermon. You see how vast it is, how gigantic it is. But I don't know if 60 or 70% or even more is in the hands of the Syrians. Gentlemen, basically, this war allowed Israel to conquer the eastern side of the Jordan River from the Golan Heights all the way down to the Arnon midway of the Dead Sea.
When did we lose it?
Slowly. I want to go into order. So here we're talking about vast territories that most of it is empty of inhabitants, partly because of the war, but also because it's very, very tremendous lands. We're going to be learning, God willing, that two tribes came forward to Moshe Rabbeinu and asked, let us settle on the eastern side of the Jordan River. I'm not going to get into the details. We'll learn it in another parsha. But they are willing to be living not in central Israel, the west side, but here. Which tribes are we talking about?
Reuven and Menachem.
Reuven and Gad. They are heavy in tzon, in sheep, and these are vast pasture lands for pasturing, okay? And they want to live there. An agreement was made, as the Gemara deals with this in Delta Masechet Baba Batra, Tanai Reuven uvnei Gad. The condition that Moshe Rabbeinu made, you come in, you fight, and only after you fight can you go back to your families. And you'll build shacks for your families and for your animals and so on. Reuven settled in the southern side of the Giladi Mountains. Okay, we're talking now the first commonwealth of the Jewish people. We enter into the land of Israel. Reuven settles in the southern side, whereas Gad settles in the northern side. And further north, we see the involvement of half of the tribe of Menachem. I'm not going to get into it. We'll learn when we get up to it. Why is Menachem involved? They didn't ask or volunteer for that. Only Reuven and Gad did. But we see that half of Menachem is there. Now, what would be the attitude of the non-Jews, Ammon and Moab, living there to the arrival of these two tribes? What would be their attitude? Okay, that attitude we can see in our parak here in Sefer Shoftim, that we're going to read, God willing, next Shabbos, Parshat Balak, and we're going to see that they tried to stop our progress living here on the eastern side of the Jordan River. But there are things that are not written here specifically. Okay? It doesn't say literally that they feel the hardship that they're here with the Jews together, and they feel very hard that the lands were captured from the Abok all the way to the Arnon by Bnei Israel. But the situation is they didn't have the chutzpah. You know what the word chutzpah means?
Yes, good.
The guts, brazenness, whatever, to make a claim and ask for the land to come back. They didn't have the chutzpah. It doesn't belong to them. Who captured the land? Am Yisrael captured the land. However, awareness. It's in their national awareness of Ammon and Moab that they're not giving up. They see the southern Giladi area, southern Gilad, northern Gilad, as part of their land. When do we see this? Sefer Shoftim, Perek Yud, is the threat of the attack. We opened up before some of you walked in. We read 2 verses in chapter 10. Now, 300 years later, believe it or not, they feel strong enough. I mean, the question we're asking is, why now? Why are they opening up and claiming, get off of our land? That's what they're telling us. Get off of our land. Why are they demanding this now? Where were you a generation ago? Where were you 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago? Only after 300 years now do they do it. So Rav Samet, and it's a clear understanding when we study Sefer Shoftim, I've studied with other students in a previous year, we're divided people. A, tribal division. We're living in different areas. But B, we really have almost no national unity, national solidarity, very weak unity situation. We don't have a federal government, a republic that organizes, that consolidates all the Jewish people into one entity. You all know. Only when do we have a king later on? During the time of Shmuel. That's another 100 and plus years from now. Okay? So remember, we're dealing now with a nation of Israel that is weak, relatively speaking. And this are opportunistic people that see this. The king of Ammon, in this generation, he sees that what? He's strong enough to go up and fight one of the tribes on the other side of the eastern side of the Jordan, even though there are 2.5 tribes living there, Reuven, Gad, and half of Menachem. But you can take into account of a fact that Ammon, we're talking about Ammon attacking us, he has a treaty partner, B'nai Brit, can't we call it? He has a treaty with Moab. And therefore, he feels strong enough. 2 nations going up to attack and hoping or thinking that if we attack now north of the Yabok, the Jewish people living, which is probably Gad, next to half of Menachem, they're not going to get help from the other side. How many tribes living on this side? 9.5 tribes, that's right. He's thinking they'll call out, but no one's going to come and answer. They're not going to have help from 9.5 tribes. And therefore, this is the time, potentially, for Ammon to make a claim and say, get off of our land. You know what? This starts the political matter. You want us to give you peace? Give us land. Have you heard that before? I've heard of it. Okay? They call it Shtachim Tmurat Shalom. Territory. What's that? Yes, exactly, David. Right? This is where it started. They're claiming, get off of our land. If not, what are they threatening? War.
But if we give lands, they continue the war. It doesn't make sense.
I'm happy that you understand the political situation.
Yeah.
We have to educate ourselves.
Yeah,
not
land.
We have to absolutely educate ourselves. My dear friends, they're claiming that we captured their land. But we know, as you read the chapter here, in chapter 11, we know that it's a lie. We did not capture the land from Ammon directly, okay? But what did we do? Who captured parts of their land? Sichon, the king of Emori, 300 years ago. And then who attacked us? And we took over their lands. So did we directly take over the land? No, nothing doing. Yes. This brings us to the story of the hero of this chapter. Yiftach Hagiladi is his name. Why is he called Yiftach Hagiladi? Because he's living in the Giladi mountains. So when you open up to chapter 11, Yiftach Hagiladi, Haya Gibor Chayil, he was a man of valor. Vu ben Isha Zona, but his mother is a prostitute. Vayoled Gilad et Yiftach. His father is called Gilad. Vateled Eish. I'm reading verse 2. Vateled Eish et Gilad lo banim. Okay. Gilad has other sons. Vayigdelu b'nei Aisha. Vayigarshu et Yiftach. Look at this. The brothers chase away from the home the brother called Yiftach. Vayomru lo, they say to him, lo tinchal beveit avinu. You're not going to get an inheritance. Maybe the father's about to die. Could be time of inheritance. You're not going to be what? Going to get any inheritance. Get the heck out of here. Ki ben isha cheret ata. You probably come from another mother. So they are deliberately degrading him, insulting him, and saying, Litraat, get out of here. You're not going to get inheritance here. What does Yiftach do? And with what type of people does he join? Pasuk Gimel. Vayivrach Yiftach. He escapes. He feels a threat. Mipnei Echav. Vayeshev be'eretz tov. You see verse 3? It's not clear to scholars where exactly is Eretz Tov. Some suggest that he went further up north above the Yarmuk River and settled somewhere in the Golan. The Golan has vast territories. If you visit it, we're in chapter 11, sir. Chapter 11 of the book of Shoftim. Who does he settle with? Vayilachtu Yiftach Anashim Reikim Vayetzu Imo. He settles with reckless people. He joins a bandwagon of people that could be violent, criminal, reckless. Let's understand this character who, believe it or not, becomes a shofet. Some of you are going to be surprised, not David Adler, but some of you are going to be surprised how we will categorize the word shofet, and it will not be a judge. Thank you, sir. Yiftach, as we see here, is a gibor chayil. He's a man of valor. He's a courageous man. He's a military man. And he's called this way because apparently he was a Giladi man living in the Giladi area. Now, Mr. Gilad has a legal wife, okay? And he has one son, at least, from a woman that is not a legal wife. She is a prostitute, a zona. When they're growing up together, the brothers from the same Abba, yes, from the same Abba, maybe it's time, I'm suggesting, I don't know for sure, that the Abba is going to pass away and is going to be leaving a Yerusha, an inheritance. And they're saying to this brother, you're not legitimate. You're not from our Abba and Ima, and therefore you don't deserve inheritance. What can he do against many brothers? Nothing. He's kicked out. He escapes, threatened, because he escapes. And he settles in a land called Eretz Tov. It's at least the northern Giladi. Maybe it's even the Golan.
Eliyahu Navi also is from there?
No, Eliyahu, the Giladi Mountain. Eliyahu Navi, Eliyahu Tishbi, Eliyahu Agil. Beautiful. D minor. Want to sing it for everyone?
He's the singer.
Would you like to sing it for us, sir? It's less than 300 people. He doesn't appear. He's hard to get.
It has to drink wine.
I have you recorded. You should know from Rabbi Yisrael Cohen's. The solo is there. You can't deny it. You appear with in front of less than 100 people. Don't deny it. Am I right? I heard it. Okay, my dear friends, let's explain something that maybe some of you know, some of you don't know. During the time of the Tanakh, a person's economic livelihood is that he's connected to his father's home. He's connected to a tribe. Once he's connected to his father's home and tribe, he has a source of income, economic viability, and also a family. But once a person is chased away from his father's house, from the inheritance of his father, he loses his ability to sustain himself economically. You might say, as Rav, I'm quoting here. I keep on forgetting his first name. Terrible. Rav Samet, right? You might say, like Rav Samet says, this is a tragic event. It's a sad event. The Tanakh sees the importance to have it written down. By the way, who's writing Sefer Shoftim? Which prophet is writing Sefer Shoftim? Shmuel Navi. Hashem wants us to know through Shmuel the prophet that this is tragic and this is sad. A man that's chased away out of his family, out of his economic viability. He's lost all economic security and a family together. And now what do? He starts doing the wandering, like Jews have done during the Galut. Okay? And here, he tries to settle his problems by wandering, without land though. And how do you think he's getting parnasa? He joins a bunch of bandits. What do you think the bandits do? Robbing and stealing. Robin Hood. Maybe they have sheep and they have herds of sheep and flocks of sheep and they're raising them for lamb chops and other things, or milk or so on. But he doesn't have clearly a good source of parnasa. Now, this attack, this threat coming up against the Jewish people by Ammon, the Jews here in the Giladi Mountains don't have a military leader. They don't have a military leader. And who do they turn to? Okay, look at verses 4, 5, and 6. The elders, the judges, they start going further north and they're searching for Yiftach from the land called Eretz Tov. And what do they offer? What kind of job? Pasuk 6. Vayamulu Yiftach lecha. Lecha dodi, right? Lecha. You see that word in Hebrew? Third word in verse 6. Vayamulu Yiftach lecha vayita lanu lekatzin. What kind of job did they offer him? Officer. You're saying it's the same thing as a leader? We're going to learn, not like you learn. A katzin is an officer, yes, but he's not the Rosh. He's not the leader. And what does Yiftach tell these scholars in verse 7? Huh? Oh, now you want me. You kick me out. When I was kicked out of my house, you didn't make any issues or rebuttals or court claims. You hated me. You chased me out from my dad's house. Now, you're coming now when you have troubles? Now please tell me in Pasuk Chet. Let's all read the Pasuk in Hebrew and tell me what the new offer is. You ready? Pasuk 8, Echat, Shtaim, Shalosh. Vayomru ziknei Gilad el Yiftach. Find the place. Lachen, ata, shavnu eilecha, v'alachta imanu, v'nilchamta b'vnei Ammon, v'yita lanu l'rosh, l'chol yoshvei Gilad. Gentlemen, the elders of Gilad are looking for a leader. And they know what character trait Yiftach has. He's an ish chayil, a man of valor, a man of doing. We're going to sing tomorrow night the song Eshet Chayil. He is a ish chayil, a man of action, a military man, chayil, okay? Soldier, right? You see that? So we're talking about someone that knows how to manage a war. But you should know, they first offered him the job of a officer. Katzin. Ken. Now, we see here, they go back on what they want and they offer him something more to become the Rosh. Now, they thought, apparently in the previous chapter, they'll find someone locally to lead their army. But when they don't find someone, and they agree that they must look for someone who's a leader, they're going now, realize who they're going to. They're going to a person that a moment ago, he's leading a band of what are they called? Robbers, thieves. A bunch of, it says, Reikim u'pochazim. It says, Reikim are empty people. Pochazim are reckless people. But they have no choice. And now, in verse 11, the opening speech of Yiftach, notice what he says. Vayelach Yiftach, he goes with them with Ziknei Gilad. Vayasimu ha'am, when we use the term ha'am, it means a group of people, it doesn't mean the nation of Israel. And the group of people there place alehem lerosh ulekatzin. He's now the head. And he has an opening speech, and it says, Vayidaber Yiftach, it called Varav, Lifnei Hashem b'mitzpah. The commentators ask, what does it mean that he's talking before God? What does it mean? Answer, when you have a collection of scholars, holy Jews that are scholarly in Torah, it's like or considered equal to talking before Hashem. And here, he wants to bring the agreement. What is the agreement? In front of the scholars, because things have to be clear. Okay? Once Yiftach is now officially appointed as the Rosh, which includes not just the military leader, but the political leader, notice he does not go take the sword and surprise attack the people of Ammon. Verse 12, what does he do? Let's read it. Vayishlach Yiftach Malachim. What is he sending? Excellent. El Melech b'nei Ammon le'mor. What's going on with you guys? Mali valach. Mali, I'm reading again. Mali valach. Kivata elai. Are you guys connected to us? Mali valach. We're not connected. What are you coming to us? What are you coming to make a play? This becomes an idiom, an expression in the Tanakh, meaning you have no connection to me. Get off of my back. What you're not making? What claim you're making? When we read about the woman in Lebanon, which is called Tzorfat, not Tzorfat, France, that you know, but the woman Tzorfati says to Eliyahu after her son passes away, she uses the same language, Mali Valach. What are we connected to one another? Here, Yiftach reveals diplomatic talents. And what do they say in reply to his claim? Verse 13. Vayomer Melech b'nei Ammon el Malachei Yiftach. The king gives a reply to the messengers of Yiftach. You know why we're here? Ki lakach, you see the words? Ki lakach Yisrael et artzi. You guys took our land away. My land away. When? When you came up from Egypt, me'arnon v'adei Yabok v'adei Yarden, you took our land away. V'ata, and now give it back in peace. True or not true? It's a lie. We have no what's called din udvarim. We have no legal matters vis-a-vis the people of Ammon. Why not?
We can conquer.
Why not? Why do they not have a claim against us?
Because they've been defeated by Sichon.
Very good. Their lands were taken away by Sichon, the king of Amori. And then we were attacked by Sichon, and we took the lands away. So what do you want from us? This is the answer. In other words, Yiftach, I want to say something which is very important. I think, humbly, I want to say something which is very important. Okay? The point is this. This guy, can you imagine as far as, I think he puts on tefillin in the morning. He's a bandit. He goes with reckless, he goes with unlawful people. He sounds like this, not religious Jewish cowboy riding a horse on Eretz Tov somewhere in the Golan Heights. He doesn't seem to, and he's born from a prostitute mother. He doesn't seem to be your typical Machon Meir, God-fearing student. Do you agree with my assumption? It looks this way. My dear friends, Yiftach knows Chumash. He knows what happened in the book of Bamidbar 300 years ago. How? He knows.
History.
It's Tanakhic history, you're right, but he knows it. So even though he looks to you like a bum or a bandit or a horse rider with reckless people. Doesn't sound like, he's your Pirkei Avot student that's been studying 6 chapters of Pirkei Avot and acting ethically and everything. But he's now becoming a leader. Gentlemen, Yiftach sends a second time to negotiate in verse 14. And he tells them the truth in verse 15. Israel did not take Eretz Moab and Eretz Ammon. And he tells the story in length. Look at the details in verse 16. That when we came up from Mitzrayim, we traveled until Yam Suf and we came to Kadesh. We sent messengers to Melech Edom to get a right. And it says something it doesn't say in our Chumash. But you know what? The Yerushalmi says, Divrei Torah aniyim b'makom achad, ashirim b'makom acher. Here in the Tanakh, we're told about something that doesn't appear in the Chumash. Look in verse 17. That we also sent messengers to Melech Moab. Do you know that it doesn't state that in the Chumash? But it's true. The prophet is writing it. So sometimes we complement, one piece complements another. And as we're sitting there, we travel in the desert, we go back past Edom in verse 18, past Moab, and we camp by the Arnon River. And we didn't go into the border of Moab, because the Arnon River is the border of Moab. And then what did we do in verse 19? We sent messengers to the Sichon, the king of Amori. And what did we ask of them? Na'abradna, please let us pass in your land. And Sichon came to war. Pasuk 21, Yiftach is talking from an Emunah point of view. Look at Pasuk Kaf Aleph. Who delivered us in the war, Yiftach says? Hashem. Do you see verse 21? Kaf Aleph, Vayitain Hashem Elokei Yisrael et Sichon vet kol amo biyad Yisrael. Wow. He's a believer of Hashem. He's a believer of God. And as a result, what lands did we take away? In verse 22, from the Arnon until the Abok. Wow. And then, let's get to the main claim. He says, gentlemen, Pasuk Kafav, he is a shrewd, diplomatic negotiator. I'm reading 26 in Hebrew. B'shevet Yisrael b'Cheshbon. Cheshbon is the capital city of the Amorite kingdom. When Israel was sitting in Cheshbon, Uvivnotea, in the surrounding cities, Uve'aror, Uvivnotea, we've been sitting in another city called Aror and the surrounding cities, Uve'chorarim, we've been living in all these cities by the way of the Arnon. For how long? Next 3 words? Shlosh, beautiful Yisrael, Shlosh Me'ot Shana. What, you just woke up now? Umadua lo itzalta. Why didn't you save it during these 300 years? Why didn't you threaten 300 years? You understand his logic? Where you guys been? We're living here 300 years. We didn't take it from you. We took it from someone else. You're a bunch of liars. And our claim is the Tanakh. Yiftach knows the Tanakh. He tells the truth. And he believes in Hashem. Okay? And he says innocently in verse 27, V'anochi lo chatati lach, I didn't sin to you, I, meaning I, the nation. V'ata oseti ra, but you're doing bad to me? Lilachem bi, to fight me? And now look at the words of belief. Yishpot Hashem. Let God judge. Hashofetim, to be the judge today. Bein b'nei Yisrael, between us, uvein b'nei Ammon. Gentlemen, words of faith. A guy goes around with reckless people and so on and so forth. We see how sincere he is, what a leader he is. He's a leader. He's very talented in his negotiating treats and matters. And he's saying, you guys are a bunch of liars. And you're a bunch of liars, and we didn't take it from you. So Yiftach, in his negotiation, completes a historical detail. Number one, that we didn't know, that we sent messengers to Moab, that's not written in Chumash. And he's making a claim that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us this inheritance, then why should you be claiming it? Where have you been for 300 years? This is a very long negotiation section that we don't usually see in the Tanakh. Any questions until now, gentlemen? Yes? No? Uh, do you think that Yiftach is only diplomatically working here, or is he getting ready for war? Okay? He's making very good claims. He's telling us he knows exactly what's written in history. But the truth was, he was taken to go to war. So why isn't he fighting? First, the answer is we have to make a moral claim, a historical moral claim that the land is ours. In other words, if you believe that the land is yours and you organize an army, then you're building what's called national security. You can't send soldiers to fight a war if they don't understand that the land is theirs. Mm. If you want to motivate people and say this is ours, it was your grandfather's, your great grandfather's, going back all these years, that's called tzidkat derech. Our soldiers, in their first few months, when they go into the army, they're told this is our nation and this is our land. We have to fight for it. Okay? So there's much more to teach them and so on and so forth. But we have to first work on a righteous path. And that's one of the ingredients, the fundamental ingredients to national security, believing that you're fighting for the right thing, for the right matter. And therefore, the gasoline for war is first understanding this is ours, okay? And telling you, the enemy, it's not yours. And I want to end basically saying that Yiftach does want to go to war. He's ready to go to war. But first, he's developing national security by justifying that the land is ours, given to us by God. Our ancestor took it not from you, but from someone else. In the meantime, Yiftach could be behind the scenes, mobilizing forces, organizing divisions of soldiers, and getting ready to instill spirit, to raise the morale of his soldiers, which we see he does. Because in verse 29, Vatiyal Yiftach Ruach Hashem, the Spirit of God is now on Yiftach HaGiladi, and that allows him to win the war. My dear friends, what is Ruach Hashem? I have the Targum, Yonatan ben Uziel, the great translator of the books of the prophets, Yonatan ben Uziel, great Tanaic scholar. And here I see underlined in a purple color, what is Ruach Hashem? Ruach Gvura, the spirit of courage. This is a Gemara in Mesachet Baba Metzia, that when a Jew rises to the occasion to defend his people, then God allows him to reveal and discover powers, energies, abilities to fight that are not normal or not natural. Like when we see what's told about David, when he was a shepherd for his father, and he was met up with a lion, and another time with a bear, and he overcame it. That's called Ruach Hashem. What is that again? The spirit of courage to overcome the enemy. Shimshon, absolutely. So what we can say about Sefer Shoftim as a whole, and the section of Yiftach HaGiladi as an example, that we often had leaders during 300 plus years between the time of after Yoshua until the time of Elkanah and Shmuel. Leaders that were not necessarily your God-fearing leaders, but you know what? They were Shoftim. What are Shoftim? I heard this from the Rav of Elon Moreh about 25 years ago. Rav Levanon is his name, Rav. And he said, Shoftim, really, the English translation, judges, is not a good translation. Shoftim is the following. Any leader that's able to stir, mobilize, instill in groups of fellow Jewish people the will to defend ourselves and go to war, that is a shofet. We see that throughout the entire book of Shoftim, some 24 chapters. Each shofet is a unique leader that he has the ability to enlist people to fight a war and defend the Jewish people. That's a shofet. He could be not a religious guy, yet he's Hashem's will. Why? Because often our leaders mirror the level of our generation. The generations in this time of the book of the Shoftim are not so we go into idolatry and this and that. We have ups and downs. If I were to draw an economic curve, like an economic chart, you can see we have ups and downs. Our ups, we're independent, no war. Then we go down, we're doing idolatry. We're overturned by nations, and they're leading us, and they're taxing us, and we're like in the land of Israel. That's the time of the Shoftim. It's a very, very unstable spiritual time. And these leaders are chosen by God, which means so much for us today. That even if we have leaders that don't wear a kippah, maybe don't put on tefillin and do other things, maybe that's the will of Hashem. The Gemara says, quote, Yiftach bidoro kishmuel bidoro. Yiftach in his generation, like in his generation. What does that mean? Shmuel, of course, was a God-fearing prophet, equal in certain means to Moshe and Aaron, as King David writes, and Tehillim will say that tomorrow night. And Yiftach maybe wasn't a religious leader, but you know what? Hashem wanted him to lead the Jewish people because he has the abilities to mobilize people, to instill the vigor, the willpower, the brave courage needs that you're needed to fight and defend the Jewish people. That's a shofet. And we see that he's respected, he's chosen by God. Even though right now, if you read the end of the Haftarah from Lamed Bet and on, you see that he makes a terrible mistake. He takes a vow, a terrible vow. Okay, and he says, if God will deliver me in this war, the first thing that comes out of my farm area, I'm going to bring it as a sacrifice. Who came out of the farm area? His daughter. Was he going to sacrifice her? To several meanings. Some said that she had to be away, couldn't get married, couldn't be with anyone. And some say that he had to sacrifice her to that extent. The Gemara asks, do you know who's living, who's a leader of the generation, a religious leader of these generations? Pinchas, still alive. He's the Kohen Gadol. Pinchas, the son of Elazar. Elazar, the son of Aaron. You could go to a scholar of the generation, I don't know, he's 100, 200 years old, 300 years old. It could be. And there are laws. We have a Masechet, we have a Mishnah, Gemara, Halacha, the laws of Nidarim. What did I just say? Which means? Yom Kippur night, we have a prayer called? Kol Nidrei. Very good. We have Kol Nidrei. There are laws how we can untie a neder. There's a court that can be set up. Mr. Moshe, had you known that the result of your neder would be this and this and this, would you have taken this vow? Say no. No, there you go. Okay, it's now a no, it's now a no, it's now a no. They could have done it. But people were playing with their egos. Yiftach did not want to go visit Pinchas. Pinchas didn't want to go to see him. That's the level of the generation. Have a great Shabbat, gentlemen, together. B'ezrat Hashem.